Thank you for joining us for this scene at the Academy for Nightmare Alley. I'm Peter DeBruge, Chief Film Critic for Variety Magazine. I'd like to introduce the team behind the film. We have Guillermo del Toro, co-writer, producer, and of course, director of Nightmare Alley. Bradley Cooper, actor, producer. Miles Dale, producer. Dan Lauston, director of photography. Louis Sequeira, costume designer. Tamara Deverell, production design. Now we'll look at a scene from the film in which David Strathairn's character, Pete, shows Stanton Carlyle his mentalist act.
Are you okay?
Oh, the poor woman. She wanted to know more.
Of course she did. What did you tell her?
Well, the truth. We missed a cue, and I had to use a trick to ease the crowd. It was just a trick. It hurt.
Well, it's good. It's good that you did that.
Yeah, well, I gave her an amulet.
I'm sorry I missed the cue.
I don't know why you don't keep going for her.
You never do a spook show.
Oh.
No good comes out of a spook show.
Is it so bad to give her hope?
It ain't hope if it's a lie, Stan.
All right, well, what are those cards in? Tarot?
Oh, honey, it ain't the same thing. No, I even run them over for myself and Pete. You always get some kind of answer.
I bought those for you in Paris.
We stayed at the Ritz.
Held over 4 weeks. What petite souris. I wrote most of the word system on that tour. That's where we perfected the act, didn't we, George?
Can you still do it?
All right. Stan, give Zena an article, any article.
Please concentrate on this object I have in my hand, Professor. What can you tell me?
Wristwatch, leather band, brass, not gold. Old, worn down. Oh, but it's full of meaning. Oh, it wasn't yours originally, was it? You took it, or you stole it, didn't you? Oh, I see an older man. Oh, the boy hates him. Oh, the boy would love to be loved, but he hates that man. Oh. Death. Death and the wish of death.
He loved that watch. That was his pride, my father.
Was it now? No, that's it. That's it. That's it. It's all there. Now, you see, each word has a number, and that number leads you to a different word. Bubble. And Zena feeds them to me. Please concentrate on the object I have in my hand, Professor. Please, and object 21. Emphasis on concentrate means that it is old and worn down. Cheap. Bubble. What? You gotta know how to read the mark. You know, how they move, talk, dress. People are desperate to tell you who they are. Desperate to be seen.
Ain't that the truth?
What I love about this scene, Guillermo, is the way you're kind of playing with the codes of film noir, which of course has affected all of your cinema until now, but this is the first real noir film you're making. How were you kind of thinking about reinventing, some of those aesthetic signatures for a color film?
Well, when we started the process, Dan and I were doing a film that was a black and white color, so to speak. So the contrast ratio and the style of lighting was very much of a film of that style, influenced by expressionism and classical studio lighting. The realism and the creation of a movie that was not just a period, but it felt of the time, were paramount in our head.
Dan, I understand that Guillermo had wanted to potentially shoot Shape of Water in black and white. So this is a conversation that you guys have been having for a while. And this, of course, is a movie where you've actually released a black and white version, though, of course, the theatrical version most of us saw was color. Would you talk a little bit about the kind of translation of a black and white language to color?
Yeah, when we start to talk about, first of all, we talked about Shape of Water. He wants to do that in black and white, and I was like, wow, but we didn't have him. And then we talked about this one, and we said we want to do a color movie there, but it was lighting like it was black and white. We want to have like deep blacks and a very nice highlight exposure for the key light. So so if we was later on going into a black and white version, we have the possibilities to do that.
Tamara, I'd love to hear your thoughts on the scene that we've just looked at, is typical, I think, of the first half of the movie, which, if I understand correctly, was shot second, and that you first did the sort of, the big city high life stuff. But this is really the side that, feels more traditional noir, I think. Would you talk about, we heard about the lowering ceilings, but what other touches, were you kind of incorporating into the set that we've just seen in the scene?
I think once we decided to lower the ceilings, and I mean, that was a tough decision. I was actually running to Lewis saying, how tall is Bradley, to make sure that he fits in the ceiling, because it was literally a few inches above Bradley's head. But we, what was important to me was to put texture on the ceiling because we were going to see them so much. So I was sort of focusing a bit on in Zena's bungalow we did a tongue and groove, which is traditional for the period. And in the back bathroom area that you don't see in that scene, we did pressed tin, again, adding a lot of texture and for me, it's giving each set a sense of history. So our amazing team of painters just, do many coats of paint so that you're not walking into a fresh space. Those are some of my considerations. I mean, I just looking at that scene now, I love the way, Dan lit it and brought those textures up, but also at one point, David is in the shadow of, I guess it's Bradley's head, and it just lights his eyes. And I just, when I just watched the scene, I was like, that is so cool and kind of ballsy to do that. So kudos always, Dan.
Dan, let's go back to the lighting, because this is evocative of film noir, but I think you're not copying it directly. You're kind of interpreting it. And a good example is the way that the characters each, but Stanton Carlyle, Bradley's character in particular, kind of sit in pools of light, and it sort of gives their face certain shadows. But if you look at film noir, it can often be like a really harsh white light pouring in, and then everything else can kind of be bathed in black. You're doing it differently here. Would you talk a little bit about the design of the lights for this?
Yeah, when we talked about blocking the scene, we knew we were shooting so wide angle, but when Guillermo blocked the scene, we talked a lot about where should the key light coming from and where should the fill light coming from. And that was a little bit tricky because the camera's moving so much and we see half of the room all the time, and we didn't want to have front light, we want to be side light or three-quarter lights, or Bradley was a big part of the gaffer team on this show because he was always playing around with the shadows a little bit, and it was a big help, of course, and thank you for that, Bradley, but it's just you need
welcome.
Bradley, to throw to you at this moment, because you really are having to do your performance within all of these other moving elements without the audience being aware of the contributions of, the design, the cinematography, et cetera. What are some of the sort of challenges that pose to you in terms of, I don't know, blocking or, sort of positioning yourself in a way that is above the performance and knowing kind of like that you're part of this, the architecture of the scenes?
Well, I mean, the beauty about working with all the artists on this Zoom is that you don't think about any of that because a world is created for you that you enter into and just utterly believe. And that doesn't always happen. There's a part of your brain that has to be used for the imagination of what the space could be. But in this film, at every turn, none of that energy was necessary because it was all done for the actors. So, and that's a very unique experience that I've never had before, of the attention to detail. And Dan brings up a great point. Often the lighting was outside of the set, which for an actor is heaven. And because of so many wonderful lenses that they chose to use for this film. So the truth is, my answer is that it just made everything easy. And that's kind of what a gift, easy in terms of entering into the space. From the moment I first met Louis, I mean, his attention to detail, I cannot say enough about the clothes that were Stanton's. I mean, and the amount of times we went over that tuxedo jacket at the Copa, I mean, and there's something, and Louis just never gave up to, and same with the Tamara and Dan, like, we were always searching for the best way to execute, always, and no one ever gave up. And when you have Guillermo at the helm, who's going to pivot if he has a great idea, to watch everybody just go along and give it their best to accommodate that was inspiring.
Let's talk a little bit about the costumes, and I'm especially interested in the kind of way that the movie is in two halves, because Bradley's character traverses that, where a lot of the others are kind of existing in one half or the other, but you kind of have to reinvent him, and there's a jump in the middle too. So to talk a little bit about how you wanted to sort of prepare the first half so that the second half would present a different version of his arc.
Well, specifically to the scene, what I love about this scene is that the characters have just come from the carnival. So it's all about peeling away these layers of what people see, and then seeing what we see behind that. So, the pull away shirt, and Zena's taking off her performance dress. So I love that about this scene. In relationship to Stanton's character, I think we talked about fit and proportion from the beginning of the movie to the end, and what was unfitted and a little loose at the beginning, obviously tons of texture. We then moved into perfectly tailored garments, which of course, thank you, Bradley. Yes, we wanted to make it as good as we could. And I think it worked out well, but it really was about impeccable fabrics, textures, fit, and that arc was remarkable. Again, at the end of the movie, where we just go to a whole nother level.
The other thing I just want to, sorry to interrupt just for a second. The other thing I just want to say about Louis's work is that also the form always followed the function. It was what was in that suitcase that we saw Stanton have when he arrived at the carnival. And, there could be definitely the inclination like, well, this will be great. And then in this scene, he's wearing this, but it was like, okay, how can we fit that suitcase to the best of your ability in order to then tell the story? And just to watch him deal with that Rubik's Cube was pretty incredible.
For the level of work and planning that went into this, I mean, how does this compare to you've worked with Guillermo del Toro before on, Shape of Water, of course, and but just to clear the decks for something this ambitious, what fights needed to be won?
Well, it really isn't a fight. It's more of explanation of the vision, communicating the clarity of the vision. I mean, this group, we've all worked together a lot. So the beauty of the shorthand that we have is a great thing, because we know that Guillermo's expectations are high, and I think our greatest fear is to come up short. So we all knew kind of what we were doing. And the thing about this group is that, Guillermo really considers this to be, for lack of a better word, production design is Tamara, Dan, Lewis, Shane, and it's a combination of those things. There's nothing arbitrary. There's no paint color or wardrobe fabric that isn't considerate of the lighting or, the other things. So when we see in the garden, Stan and Grindel's dark coats contrasting against the snow, or in the hotel room, Stan's robe contrasting perfectly against the wallpaper, and those color palettes, the carnival color palette being different from the buffalo color palette. Those things, I've never worked with a director who's approached it with such precision as Guillermo. And I learned that, originally on Mama, and then on The Strain, and then again on The Shape of Water. But really, it felt like it hit kind of a new peak on this film. And, frankly, COVID was very difficult for us in terms of having to manage the film, but it did give us a lot of great opportunities. We were talking about the carnival. We had built the carnival in the spring of 2020, and we were actually in a big rush. And so when we stopped, it was nice that, it got beaten up in the rain and the wind and the sun. And when we got back to it in September, it was much more authentic. It really saved the scenic painters a lot of time doing aging that only nature could do. So, there were some great moments, and there were some high expectations, and personally, I feel that this group really achieved and exceeded in most cases.
One thing I just want to add about the carnival and what everybody was able to create. When you go onto a location, sometimes you turn to your left and you think, well, wait, that's the better place to shoot. Rarely does that happen on a set that's been built. But I remember Guillermo and Dan when it was the 10-in-1 where Stanton originally was going to pitch the electric chair to Molly, but Tamara had created such an incredible wagon and the path down, remember? And Guillermo was like, no, it's got to be there. He's got to come down. We have to access all of this incredible set design and production design that wasn't in the movie. And because of that, because of the attention to detail, that flexibility to be able to do that on a set, I've never experienced that, where you're literally like, wait, that was just one of the most exciting things for me as a lover of this art form that day, and that pivot was very exciting to be a part of.
Yeah.
Bradley, are you learning things, for future times that you will be directing from these experiences with other directors like Guillermo and this incredible team?
Yeah, every moment. Yeah.
Like next time you make a film at a carnival, you'll build the whole thing out so you can do it like this.
No, the carnival's been crushed. I will never step foot in another carnival again. You can't beat it.
I think that what we aspire to as directors is to inspire and be inspired. And this group did that for me.
You all have done such incredible work here. I appreciate that we had the chance with this one scene to kind of dig into some of the details, but we could talk about any 2 minutes of the film for 30 minutes or an hour at a time. Thank you all for joining. Congratulations on your nominations, and your work will stand the test of time.
Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
See you guys.